بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خاتم المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا طب القلوب وربيعها محمد عليه أزكى الصلوات وأطيب التسليم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So as you know, today is Friday, and generally we are asked by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to read Surah Al-Kahf in this Friday, and for that reason I started by Salat by reading Surah Al-Kahf according to the recitation of Warsh. Probably you notice some difference in pronunciation, but it's a riwayah also correct going to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for that reason, for this khatir, I also want to think with you and think together about a story in Surah Al-Kahf at the end of Surah Al-Kahf, which is the story of al-Qarnayn. And I choose as a title of this story, or of this khatira, as a title, Could al-Qarnayn be the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam? So this is just a question, and we'll go through Surah Al-Kahf and try to see if there are any similitudes between the al-Qarnayn and Sulaiman alayhi salam. So in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah tells us about al-Qarnayn, a just ruler whom he empowered on earth and guided to travel to the farthest limits of the world. But who was he? So many names were suggested by historians. Some ones are talking about Alexander the Great, someone about the Cyrus the Persian, and other yet none fit the Quranic description of a believer guided by Allah. So a remarkable possibility arises from within the Quran itself. Could the Quran actually be the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam? So let us explore the evidence, the logic, and the linguistic harmony, always remembering that Allah knows best. Allahu a'lam. So to start, the first point is people often quote the saying ملك الدنيا أربعة مؤمنان وكافران فالمؤمنان سليمان وذو القرنين. 4 ruled the world, 2 believers and 2 disbelievers. The believers were Sulaiman and Dhul Qarnayn. So this report is a narration without any prophetic chain. So it's not sahiha, and we cannot prove that it's true. So therefore it cannot be used as evidence to separate the 2 figures. So the second point, the Quran uses different names as titles for the same prophet, because someone will just come and say why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't name him Sulaiman if he was Sulaiman in this surah, Surah Al-Kahf. And Allah sometimes gives prophets multiple names or honorific titles. For instance, the Nun is Yunus. For instance, Al-Masih is Isa. For instance, Israel is Yaqub. Thus, Dhul Qarnayn, the possessor of 2 horns, or powers, or nations, all this can be translated from his name in Arabic, may also be a title referring to Sulaiman alayhi salam. So the third point, why the historical candidates don't fit Dhul Qarnayn. So we said Alexander, Cyrus, and other figures suggested by historians were not Muslims, whereas the Quran describes Dhul Qarnayn as a believer favored by Allah. إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Indeed, we established him upon the earth and gave him from everything a means. Sulaiman alayhi salam received a nearly identical description. وورث سليمان داود وقال يا أيها الناس علمنا منطق الطير وأوتينا من كل شيء. So Sulaiman inherited Dawood and said, O people, we have been taught the speech of birds and have been given from everything. And as you can see, identical phrase, أوتينا من كل شيء, for Sulaiman and for Dhul Qarnayn, which connect their dominion and divine favor. So the first point, the connection to Jews' question. So وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. So this story starts by, or this part of Surah Al-Kahf starts by, they ask you about Dhul Qarnayn. And according to early tafsirs and Asbab Nuzul, this question was posed through Jewish scholars or Quraysh consulting with them. It is consistently mentioned, showing the story linked to Banu Israel prophetic line. So they knew about it. Again, pointing towards Sulaiman alayhi salam. So the fifth point, the copper and iron legacy from Dawood to Sulaiman to Dhul Qarnayn. So Sulaiman was uniquely granted control over molten copper. وَأَسَلْنَا لَهُ عَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ, and we made flow for him a spring of molten copper. His father, Dawood alayhi salam, was the first to be given mastery over iron. وَلَأَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ أَنْ يَعْمَلْ فِي السَّابِغَاتِ وَقَدِّرْ فِي السَّلْ. We softened iron for him, make complete coats of armor and measure the lengths precisely. Then Dhul Qarnayn in Surah Al-Kahf built his colossal wall using iron blocks and molten metal of copper. This perfect chain, iron, copper, wall of metal, unite three consecutive events within the same prophetic family and skill set, emphasizing that the power of Dhul Qarnayn corresponds exactly to what Sulaiman was given. The sixth point is the logical timeline. So Dhul Qarnayn cannot be after Sulaiman. Why? Because Sulaiman had his famous da'wah, قال رب اغفر لي وهب لي ملكا لا ينبغي لأحد من بعدي. My Lord, forgive me and grant me a kingdom that will not belong to anyone after me. So no later ruler could equal his domination. The second point, Dhul Qarnayn cannot be before Sulaiman. Why? Because Sulaiman was the first or only person to whom Allah granted the miracle of flowing molten copper. If Dhul Qarnayn used similar materials earlier, it will contradict that divine exclusivity. Hence, both being world-ruling kings under Allah's command indicate that they were contemporary. But since they ruled the world, we cannot have two persons ruling the world at the same time, which means, logically speaking, they should be the same figure. Number 7, traveling by divine means. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So he followed the way. Sulaiman had the wind at his command. وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحَ عَاصِفَةً تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ. And to Sulaiman was subject to the stormy wind, blowing by his command. That explains how Dhul Qarnayn could traverse enormous distances swiftly, westward and eastward by divine means. Number 8, the direction of journeys. So Dhul Qarnayn, or the Quran mentions Dhul Qarnayn, travels in order: west, north, east. And this is just a quick note regarding the modern flight paths that traveling from the west to reach the east most directly passes through the north. So many people of us traveling from the east to the west or vice versa, the flight generally is going to the north. And this is like a very interesting path that Sulaiman ﷺ followed: west, north, and east. So Sulaiman's sweet-born journeys match this pattern. And the south, though not named in Al-Kahf, is clearly represented in the Quran by Sulaiman's mission to the people of Saba. So, إِنِّي وَجَدْتُ امْرَأَةً تَمْلِكُهُمْ وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Indeed, I found a woman ruling over them who has been given of everything. That's Sulaiman and Dhul Qarnayn stories collectively or complementary cover all four directions for someone who is ruling the world: west, north, east, and south. A complete global domination matching Dhul Qarnayn's scope. Number 9, understanding speech and nations. So Dhul Qarnayn encountered the people who could scarcely understand speech. Sulaiman had the unique gift, عُلِّمْنَا مَنْطِقَ الطَّيْرِ. We have been taught the speech of birds. Both shared a divine ability to communicate beyond normal human limits. Number 10, the meaning of Dhul Qarnayn. So we can translate it as two horns, two powers, two nations. And in case of Sulaiman, that may symbolize two realms, mankind and jinn, under Sulaiman rule, two nations, Banu Israel and Saba, two forms of might, spiritual with prophethood and nubuwah, and material with kingship and mulk. So that's the title Dhul Qarnayn beautifully fits Sulaiman's as well. As a conclusion, the four rulers saying is a weak hadith, let's say. All proposed historical kings were not believers, unlike Dhul Qarnayn. Tafsirs connect the question about him to Jewish scholars, linking it to Sulaiman heritage. Chronology, metallurgy, directional journeys, and wine-borne travel all align perfectly. Hence, the evidence strongly suggests that Dhul Qarnayn and Sulaiman are one and the same figure, a prophet king ruling the world by Allah's permission. And again, Allah knows best. Wallahu a'lam. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.